Welcome. I'm Angela York, co-founder of Event Advisors alongside Elyse Stoner. To give you a brief background, Event Advisors merges Elyse's rich expertise in sports, entertainment, and higher education event marketing with my extensive background in financial services marketing and event planning. Together, we're revolutionizing client relationship events for financial professionals by emphasizing the return on the moment, also referred to as the ROM paradigm. ROM enhances the marketing value of events, leading to increased event successes. And today we are honored to be sharing our time with Cathy Sikorski, an elder law attorney, speaker, and media guest who promotes financial and legal preparation in caregiving and aging. The author of 3 books, Cathy's most recent book is 12 Conversations, How to Talk to Almost Anyone About Long-Term Care Plans. Cathy has educated financial, long-term care, insurance, and HR professionals, caregivers, social workers, and corporate teams about LTC planning. Her appearances include television, radio, and podcasts, and she was featured on Huffington Post, AARP, and is a She Source expert for the Women's Media Center. I had to practice She Source a couple of times. Anyways, welcome, Cathy. We're thrilled to have you here.
I am happy to be here. I am so excited about this event because one of my main thrusts, and that's why I was so happy to meet Elyse and Angela, is we need, as experts, who they are in event planning, and I am in elder law, financial, and legal planning. We need to meet with experts and collaborate to bring the best possible outcome to what we're looking for our clients, right? So we're going to take a little journey today. I would like you to meet my clients, Anne and John. And I think if you are in financial services, insurance services, even if you are in any other services that have to do with long-term care, Anne and John are going to sound very typical as your own clients. And ideally, what I would do is I would get them in the room with us, not with me as an attorney, but with you at your event to talk about what I can bring to the table for them in terms of information would encourage them to take the action you want them to take in a long-term care preparation or planning way. Now, here's the thing, something that you really need to know. First of all, financial planners do not actually have this conversation very often. Statistically, it seems that as of right now, less than half of financial planners and even insurance people are bringing up the conversation about what is your plan about long-term care? And I know a lot of people are thinking, well, we'll wait until our clients are in retirement, which quite frankly, from my point of view, as a legal planner is a big mistake for a couple reasons. Number one, you don't have to be old to have a long-term care event. Any one of us can walk out the door today, get hit by a bus, and be in a long-term care situation, right? But it's not only that. It's like you do with financial services, with insurance services. You're planning actually for the future. And so you need to be having those conversations right now. And of course, they are around money. Now, a lot of people think I don't talk about money because I'm an attorney. I talk about legal documents. I talk about preparing those documents. But I got to be honest with you, everything in long-term care comes down to money. It really, truly does. And yes, I am not a financial advisor. I can't even be a financial advisor. I am licensed in the state of Pennsylvania. We are not allowed as attorneys to sell financial products or actually do financial planning advice. What we are allowed to do is to work with financial planners, insurance planners, and other people in the elder law sphere to make sure that our clients are making the best possible decisions for future long-term care planning. So why do I have a retirement crisis slide here? Because the way we save money has changed. This is not your grandmother's savings anymore. You know, in the old days, we had joint savings accounts, joint checking accounts, joint real estate, right? Everybody owned their houses, husband and wife, or spouse and spouse. And we do still have a lot of those things. But where most of our money is, for almost all of us, especially if you have high net worth clients. And that also is kind of a weird nomer right now. What does that actually mean? But I'm talking about people who have $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. They have this amount of money in their IRAs, in their 401ks, because we've shifted the way people save money. It's not pensions anymore. It's these savings mechanisms, IRAs, 401ks. And here's the thing that you probably know, but most of your clients do not know or understand. They will be shocked when you tell them, even though you already know this, that IRAs, 401ks, 403bs can only ever be owned by one person. They are never, ever, ever joint. That's a shock to most of your clients, especially if they are married. So remember my clients, I said we're going to take them on a journey. Anne is 62 years old. John is 77 years old. So there's quite a large age gap there. And when IRAs and 401ks became a part of savings, and you guys have to remember, this is kind of a new thing, right? People who are in their 60s and 70s didn't start out their retirements that way because this wasn't even a thing. We weren't saving money. But now that we've made this the way that corporations make pension plans or make savings for us, we have this as our biggest savings. And what is the secret thing that we have? We have a match. And you know what match? You know how you spell match? FREE, free money. When people are putting money into their 401ks and their companies are matching it, they're getting 3%, 5%, 6% of free money. So, what are couples doing? Hopefully, wisely, this is what they're doing. They are taking that free money and they're getting as much of it as they possibly can. So, this is what Anne and John did. John worked for corporate America. He was getting crazy matches. In the very beginning, it was 3%, 6%, 10%, 15%. As he went up the corporate ladder, the match got bigger and bigger and bigger. So they took every possible amount of money that they could and put that into that 401k. Anne was self employed. They weren't saving any money in an IRA or 401k for her because this was family money. It made perfect sense. And then when he retired, and now, and you all know these 401ks and IRAs over the last few years have been growing by leaps and bounds. They have $3 million. Awesome, right? Family money. But John has a massive stroke. This is not Anne's money, which comes as a shock to her. This is not her money. This is John's money. And the nursing home is like, hooray, yay, we got $3 million. We're getting full freight at $12,000 a month, $144,000 a year, with no extras, by the way. That's the base cost for where they live. And this is a panic situation. Now, because Anne and John are my clients, they have what they need in place for Anne to have access to that money. And that's a power of attorney. And not just a power of attorney by itself, which, as you know, probably, or maybe you haven't really discussed this, but a power of attorney, the 30-second definition is this: it's a document you sign giving someone the authority, your agent, to act as if they are you in any capacity financially. It is a very powerful tool because they can get into your savings, your checking, your investments, buy your house, buy a house with your money, sell your house, sell your car. Extraordinarily powerful tool. Very scary. You have to watch out for it from an abuse standpoint. But between spouses, between partners, a really important critical tool because that's the only tool that is going to give Anne access to John's money. And why does she need access? Well, quite frankly, that's their money. That's all her retirement money. Remember, she's 62 years old. She could live another 35 years perfectly healthy and need that money for her care as well. So that's where the lawyer comes into play. We've got your document in order, but we also need to figure out how to protect that money for Anne. So with your financial advisor, we work together to move assets around, to figure out what we're going to do. But without that in the very beginning, Anne doesn't even have access. That is a scary, scary thought. So the first thing we need to do is get all their documents in a row. And then we need to say to them, their financial advisor, okay, what's your plan? What do they want? Do they want to pick a community where, it's a step down community? Do they want to make sure Anne has a certain amount of money and can we move some assets around to protect her? Do they want to wait for a crisis and then see what happens? Okay, but at least we have everything in place that we want in place so that we can weather that crisis. So, do you see how we have to work together? How collaboration is so important? And when we started putting this together, Elyse and I and Angela were talking, and Elyse said, this reminds me of when you tell your kids something and they don't listen to you, but they hear it from some other adult or from TikTok, and all of a sudden the exact same thing you just said was something that they're like, hey, this is a good idea. We should do that. That's why bringing an expert in, who you may have even said all of this to your clients, but bringing an expert in who really does just work in that piece gives them more credibility, and it gives you more credibility. It says, you're looking out for me because you're bringing in people who know about this. I know one of my friends is in this room today, Pam, and Pam is an expert in dementia care, right? It's not just me that's the only expert that could be in the room. There's so many opportunities for you as a financial advisor, as an insurance advisor, even as a long-term care advisor to bring other experts into the room with event planners like Angela and Elyse who can tell you how to make this event something that gives your clients the impetus to take action. So I want to talk to you about some of the actions that your clients might take after having, that's just a 5-minute conversation that I just gave you. That is certainly not everything I would say, but I'm hoping you're thinking, wow, I didn't know that, or I don't talk to them about that. And I see where that's an important piece of the planning part. Because as I told you, Anne has to be able to get money from John through that power of attorney. Guess what that is? That's gifting. She literally has to have language in that power of attorney that says, I can gift money. John saying, Anne can gift money as my agent to herself. It is a gift. And that has lots of implications, but the biggest one is that she can do it. Otherwise, she can't touch that money. That's John's money, period. Many, many people say to me, but my spouse is my beneficiary. That's no problem. She's my beneficiary on my IRA. That's fine if you're dead, but you're not dead in this story. In this story, you're very, very sick and you're incapacitated. Beneficiaries are only for people who have died, but it's even more complex than that. Check your beneficiary designations. I don't know if you all heard the story last week or maybe 2 weeks ago about the gentleman who worked for Procter and Gamble. He worked there for 25 or 30 years. When he started there in his 20s, he put his high school girlfriend on there as his beneficiary. He racked up all these wonderful benefits, life insurance, his profit sharing, and she was the beneficiary. And in 25 years, he never, ever checked it or changed it. And I can pretty much assure you that was not his girlfriend when he died. He was single. His family is suing, but honestly, I don't have high hopes for them. Check your beneficiary designations. They're on IRAs, 401ks, life insurance, annuities. You got to check, check, check. Things change. People change. They get divorced. Your kids get divorced. And you had your son-in-law on there and you don't even like him anymore. You've got to check that information because what we're trying to do if we get into a long-term care crisis is probably transfer assets because people want to do a couple things. They usually want to protect a healthy spouse. They might want to protect someone who has special needs, a special needs child or a special needs adult, or they want to leave a legacy. I hear this all the time. I've worked hard all my life. I want to leave something for my kids or my grandchildren. I don't want every penny I've ever earned to go to a nursing home. Well, that requires planning. That requires the capability of moving assets around. That requires deciding whose 401k we're going to use. Are we going to use John's 401k to take care of him? Maybe that's the best idea. And maybe we're going to save other money for Anne and for the other people in our lives. That's Medicaid planning. Medicaid gets a bad rap. And if I had more time, I would really try to convince you, because I usually can, that Medicaid is not only a good idea, but it's a useful tool. in legal and financial planning and long-term care. That's a whole other class. Maybe we'll have another class on that. So what is this about? Well, there's an overseer of all this. Yes, this is the scary pumpkin. This is the perfect season for this. That's why I brought it up. I love my scary pumpkin. As I'm talking to you about this 401k IRA, big issue, we have something called the Secure Act, which some of you in this room, I'm sure, have heard of it. Others, you may not know that there's a scary pumpkin, the great pumpkin behind us, having all this authority over our money and how it's going to be doled out and how we can use it because it applies to all that 401k IRA money. And in the last 4 years, my goodness, they keep pulling the rug out from under us. Every time we try to make a plan, they pull it out and say, now you got to make a different plan. Some of it is really good. Some new things in the last 3 months have come into play that in the future, in 2025, 2026, are going to make some savings and some planning, especially around long-term care, easier, better, more affordable. Some of it is a nightmare, is the scary pumpkin nightmare. This happened a few years ago. You may know that if you have a 401k or an IRA and you do die in this case and your beneficiary inherits it, your wife, your spouse, your husband can actually stretch that over their lifetime, which is awesome. Remember, Anne's 62, John's 77. If he dies and she can stretch that over her lifetime, that's a wonderful thing for her. It used to be that your kids could stretch it, your grandchildren could stretch it, whoever inherited it could stretch it over their lifetime. It was a great savings mechanism, but they're on to us. It would slow down the trickle of tax, right? So they changed that. And now a spouse can still stretch it. And there are some exceptions for disabled children, special needs people, whatever, but the exceptions are few and they're a little bit difficult. And the truth of the matter is, as a legacy product, that's pretty much gone. Now, if your children or your grandchildren or your great grandchildren inherit your IRA, your 401k, they have to take all that money out in 10 years. Now, imagine you have one child, or even let's say you have two, and they inherit $3 million, and they have to take all of that money out in 10 years. Even if they take out, $300,000 a year for 10 years, they have to add that to their income. It's going to push them up into a higher income tax bracket. It's kind of a tax nightmare. It's a little bit painful. So what that means is that we lawyers and we financial advisors and we insurance advisors need to sit down and noodle, wait a minute. Maybe there are some other ways to use this money and to use other assets to protect your legacy instead of just letting that $3 million sit there because it's in a safe place, it's earning a lot of interest, it's growing like crazy. That's awesome. My kids can have that. We're living off, our Social Security and some other investments that we have. Maybe that's not what you want to do. Maybe you haven't even thought about long-term care. Maybe you don't have a long-term care insurance plan, or you haven't, come up with a policy that has long-term care as part of it. Maybe that's what you could be doing with that money so that a nursing home doesn't come in and start taking $12,000 a month. You have a way to defray that cost. You've used some of that money and you're leaving your shore house and your house to your kids because those are actually worth $2 million, but a very different way of inheriting. Again, this is a lot of planning with a lot of different experts, and it requires a lot of conversation with your clients. Here's something you need to know as well. 70% of widows leave their financial advisor when their spouse passes away. Now, this story with Anne and John that I just told you, I think you might be able to figure out why. Every time Anne went to the financial advisor's annual or semi-annual meeting, he sat there and he talked to John at length. You know why? Because he knew that was John's money. Technically, as I told you, that IRA was completely John's money. And so he wanted John's input about what we're going to do with that money. But as far as Anne was concerned, and even Anne and John, that was family money. And they should be having family conversations about what happens if something happens to me. What happens if something happens to John? What happens if something happens to John and I'm now sitting there and I don't have access to that money? Or I do, but how do we move it around for, tax questions, tax purposes? Do you see how Anne felt at least disrespected, if not just an empty vessel in the room? That's what they report. And so if you're not looking at this as family money, you might be losing clients. But if you're bringing in experts like me or anybody like Pam, people who talk to families about the problems around long-term care, then you're addressing a family situation. And you probably have financial tools to help them address that situation. And you start to hear their real concerns. But honestly, I got to tell you, you have to bring it up. They're not going to. And that is another problem area that I see starting to get addressed in the financial services area. It's starting to. And the last thing I want to say about this is, yes, Anne and John are a couple. There are many of your clients who are single, who are LGBTQ, who are already widowed, and you need to address their concerns as well. It's not the same as a couple, but they still have some of the same problems and some of the same concerns. And that's when I would say, especially like in a power of attorney situation, who is your person? Is it your daughter? Is it your son? We need to bring them in. We need to have conversations. We need to invite them to this event. Guess what that does? That starts getting you family generational clients. Awesome trickle down for all of us. So the pumpkin isn't as scary. In fact, he has a smile on his face. And that's because we have solutions to these problems that are going to be good for everyone if we all work together. Okay, that's my spiel for today. Elyse, take it over.
Thanks, Cathy. I am sitting here just taking notes because so many of the things that you were talking about was just like, yes, yes. So this is just an example, right, of what bringing an expert in can do to start conversations. And we find that events are actually a really good way to start that conversation. It feels a little weird, I have to say, because it's like, this is a very personal thing. Like, why would I want to be in a room with other people, other couples, talking about my 401k or my spouse's 401k? It's taking this opportunity to bring people together, to be able to bring that expert in to kind of grease the wheels for the conversation. So one of the things that we talk a lot about with event advisors is this whole idea that the advisor as the hero is kind of having somebody else kind of grease the wheels for them in a community. You're not alone. No one likes to be called out going like, oh, hey, Angela, you really should be thinking about long-term care because, you're in that window, let's just say. But it makes it a little more of a comfortable conversation when there's other people in the room. So what we do is we work with advisors, lots of people in the FinServ space, to make sure when they do these type of events and they're bringing that expert in, that they are getting a return. One of the things that we talk about is this idea of making sure events don't have great ROI. They have what we call ROM, and we'll talk about that in the middle bit a little. But here's the key. Before you go, Cathy, you're awesome, I need to bring you in and you need to talk to everybody in my book. We are very intentional when we plan events. I come from a world, as Angela said, of sports and entertainment, where every event we do targets a certain group. And when Angela and I met, and she would talk to me, and she'll tell you a little bit about her background, she would talk to me and say, oh, well, we just do this event, and like anybody who wants to come. And I'm like, that felt very weird to me. So what we do again with event advisors is bringing intentionality to events. Angela, do you want to talk a little bit about what you bring and your experiences? And then we can dive in a little bit more with this whole idea of how to be intentional with your events when you're bringing an expert in.
Yeah, of course. So the idea of bringing in an expert is a real important conversation, and it's a concept that has been around for a very long time in advisory firms. And my background, as I mentioned earlier, is having sat in an advisory firm for a very long time as the event implementer and the marketing plan implementer, and then I've been consulting even longer after that. So I've been looking at this for a really long time, and the realization is the advisor can't be everything to everyone. They try, they think they need to. Just as they bring in experts into their business, such as operations and marketing and admin, HR, if you're a large enough firm to do that, you need to take that same concept that you can't be everything to everyone in your conversations with your clients. And this is where the experts come in. You want to consider bringing in experts to have these specific conversations with the clients. LTC is an example, elder care, dementia, Medicare, Social Security, and it doesn't have to be all the old people topics. It can be college planning, it could be saving for a home, it could be a product out there, something about 1031 exchanges. It's a little more technical, but the list goes on. And having sat in the advisory firm and also as an outside consultant looking in, it's so important to have these experts in the conversations, whether it's in the meetings, whether it's in an in-person event, a virtual event, because what this does is it elevates your position as the financial advisor, as the wealth manager. Your job is to take care of the whole piece of their financial puzzle in their life. And bringing in the experts allows you to provide more value to the clients, allows you to watch the room, whether that's room is a meeting or an in-person event or a virtual event, and participate and provide more value at a deeper level, having those conversations. And we'll talk a little bit more about opening up those conversations in a little bit, but that's really the value of an expert. So you bring in people to help you in your business, bring in experts to have those conversations. Elyse, you want to talk about the intentionality?
I do, as soon as I unmute myself. How's that?
I'm like, was I muted? Did I do that whole spiel muted?
Nope, that was just me. Hi, welcome even the event planners, right? It's all good. So you're the advisor, you want to take care of your clients and you want to grow your business, right? So one of the things that we talk with our clients about as they're like, yeah, I want to do an event. We have, like I said, it's intentionality. There's sort of three elements of this intentionality that we work with our clients. The first one is what we call the event why. Somebody will say, I want to do an event. We ask them why. There's a thing called the Toyota model, which actually was built through Toyota car production, which is like a problem-solving method. And really what it is you ask why 5 times to kind of get down to the purpose of what you're doing. So we like to employ that when we're talking about events. Well, why do you feel like you need to do this event on long-term care? Because I want to help my clients. Why do you want to help your clients? Because I know it's a topic that I've seen a lot of people face and they need to know about it. And then you just kind of keep going why and why and why. So by getting to that bottom, you then can do what we consider the next important element, which is for an intentional event, we always recommend people have goals. You have a goals for your business. You should have goals for your event. Is your goal to be an information provider for your clients? Is your goal, like Cathy was talking about, right? Like, I don't want to lose clients. I need to develop relationships with both partners. One of my goals may be, like, again, as Cathy was talking about, giving people the words and the vocabulary and teaching them and empowering them to be able to feel like they can have a conversation, because a lot of times, as we know, people don't have conversations because they don't want to look stupid. So understanding what those goals are. And one of the things that we also recommend as people are building goals is, and this is the business side of this, is making sure that one of those goals is based in how you're going to follow up from this event. You have found that there's a need, you know why you're doing that event, you've identified who that expert is that's going to come in, you know who else you want in that room. What are you going to do after the Zoom room closes or the tables and chairs are put away to carry that conversation on, or to help you achieve whatever those business goals are? So those are sort of those three elements. And Angela's going to share a little bit of like a hard example. I mean, a solid example versus just this ethereal, you should have intentionality.
It's going to be a little bit more obtuse, but yes, an example, needless to say. So let's start with, I'm going to go through the elements that Elyse just walked through. So a why. A why, we'll talk about an example of an advisory firm. A why for this advisory firm is to deepen relationships with the next gen or the beneficiaries. Your clients' children, it might be nieces, nephews, whoever it is that's their beneficiary. You, as Cathy had mentioned, not only do spouses often leave their financial advisor when the spouse passes away because they haven't developed that relationship, but we've all heard about this great wealth transfer. The kids are leaving, the beneficiaries are leaving because they don't have a relationship with the advisor. So this firm, their why to do an event and bring in an expert is to deepen the relationships with the next gen beneficiaries, to start those conversations. The goal, to do that in a genuine way through an event. You know, we don't want to be that person that calls the beneficiary or the child and says, I heard your dad's sick. I'm really sorry to hear that. Can I help? You haven't had any other conversations up to that point. That's kind of, we call it icky. You don't want to do that. So that's the goal. Do it in a genuine way. The tactics. Host an educational session for clients. Doesn't have to be big. Doesn't have to be at you don't have to have a steak dinner. You can do it in a community center. You can have snacks. Doesn't have to be high cost. But host an educational session for clients on long-term care or elder care. And ask your clients to invite their children and beneficiaries. And hopefully you know their names. And you can say, Anne, we'd love for you to invite Marcia. We really would. We really think this would be a valuable educational content for her to understand. And by doing that, it's, they're not going to think, hey, can I invite Marcia? They're just not often going to think that and ask that. So be proactive in that. So this intentionality opens up the conversations between the parent and the adult child, or the client and their beneficiary. It opens up the conversation between the advisor and the client. And then it opens up the conversation between the advisor and the adult child and beneficiary. So you're starting to deepen those relationships or start those relationships. It's just natural. And then the last piece that Elyse brought up is the follow-up. You continue these conversations that you started in a very casual environment, again, in person, virtual, whatever it might be. You started those conversations. So the follow-up, you continue these conversations in the meetings, in your review meetings, your annual meetings, whatever it might be, life event meetings, and even inviting the adult children or beneficiaries to join when appropriate, because it just feels natural. Hey, I know Marcia came to the event we had on long-term care. We're starting to think about the policies. Would you like to invite her in on the conversation? So again, if you don't start these conversations, like Cathy had said, clients are not going to raise their hand and say, hey, can we have a conversation on long-term care? Can I bring my beneficiary or adult child into the, or spouse into these meetings? You need to be proactive, and events are a great way to do that.
Absolutely. And one of the other things that we talk about in a sort of in a broader picture is the value of events for deepening relationships. And when we have advisors that put themselves in this hero seat, as we like to call it, they are deepening the relationships because it's showing that they're a resource, right? So one of the things that we teach and we believe is, as a financial advisor, as a long-term care, elder care, whatever your space is in there, to be a resource is another way to deepen relationships. We hear from so many people like, I did this event, it didn't work. And we say, well, what does that mean? Well, like I didn't write any more product, or I didn't get a new client. And again, that's where these goals come in of saying, like, are you deepening relationships? So when the time is right to write more business, get new clients, get them to refer you, you've kind of put yourself in that track. I'm currently based in Philadelphia. I'm an East Coaster. We often use the term of you as the advisor, the conduit is sort of like the I got a guy person, right? Like your clients come to you and say, you know, hey, my friend was talking about like long-term care and I don't really kind of get it. I got someone we can bring in, or my parents struggling with dementia and I'm not quite sure how to do that. Do you know anybody that has that conversation? I got a gal. In this case, it's a lot of gals, which is also because that's what we do as women. We collaborate. So that's another like value to this. And this whole idea of we talked about with the ROM is ROI doesn't really work for events because events are really about deepening relationships, giving touch points in a client journey. So when a client has an issue, a moment, or whatever, you're the person that they think of. So with that, we can certainly open this up for questions, not only as a speaker who might want to think about doing events with advisors, but also advisors who are trying to figure out how we can work together to create intentional events. We're going to throw this slide up here. We've got a special offer. If you want to do a quick 30-minute conversation with Angela and myself, this QR code takes you to the calendar. Make a note on there if you'd also like to include Cathy as that expert, and we'll coordinate that. If you want to learn a little bit more about Cathy and her books, there are 2 of them and they're available on Amazon. And we'll just open this up for any questions anybody has.
Is there anything in the chat, Elyse?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, just checking.
Yeah. And if you have a question, you can certainly unmute yourself, because we know we throw a lot at you. And again, we've got experts, but we know that there's also individual questions.
Hi, this is Marcia, and I'm sorry, did I cut somebody off?
No, go Marcia.
Quick question, I apologize because I have to run, but did you say there was a QR code that?
On the screen, on the slide on the screen.
Okay. I have
See
to
it now? Can you see it, Marcia?
Well, I have to change my view because I have a couple of monitors going.
Oh,
And
okay.
if I have too many, then it doesn't let me see everything. So
if you have the one where Cathy's sharing the slides.
There we go. Got it.
Great.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Of course.
Thanks, Marcia.
Go ahead, Elaine.
Yes.
Hey, first of all, thanks a lot. This has really been a great topic and really informative. Cathy, I read your book with the clock on it, the conversations thing over and over. I mean, and there's so many one-liners in it. It's really wonderful. I appreciate your sense of humor around it too.
Thanks.
So I'm in South Carolina, and so when we're organizing events, so as part of my strategy to find a local elder law person who's licensed in South Carolina, local, face-to-face.
Yes,
That's the
absolutely.
strategy.
Now, as you know, I am in, and of course, Elyse and Angela can help you with putting an event together anywhere. But I'm in Pennsylvania. I went to law school in South Carolina, though. Isn't that funny?
Oh my God, I'm a Temple Owl.
Nice.
How funny is that? I'm a USC Gamecock.
Yeah, whatever. No. So
But
that is the strategy, right?
yes, because this is, as you know, so very, very state specific, right?
Yeah.
And okay, I'm going to say this, and I think everyone in this room will agree with me. You have to find someone though who you feel comfortable can speak to your people, right? Who has
Yes.
a presence that you appreciate, that you feel is exactly your same, kind of relationship with your clients. It has to be that person. There's a lot of lawyers out there. There's a lot of elder lawyers, and I would definitely lean towards an elder lawyer, of course, on this topic for sure. And not even an estate lawyer. Some of us do all of it. We do estate and elder law, but here's the difference. Elder lawyers are for live people and estate lawyers are for dead people. That's really the difference right there. Now, a lot of elder lawyers do estate work and vice versa, and that's fine. But you have to make sure that it's someone who is really focusing on Medicaid planning and elder law planning, long-term care, like the cost of care, stuff like that. And you have to have someone who has a personality that matches what you're trying to bring to the table.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you
And
so much. Great
I think you
insight.
bring up a really great point with that, Cathy, because when we are intentionally building events, the first thing we talk to people about is who is that ideal client? Because as an advisor, you might say, "Oh no, my people need to hear about this," and that's fine. We may push you a little bit to just say, "Are you hearing that from them?" Or because again, there's nothing worse than hosting an event and nobody shows up because the audience isn't interested in what you're talking about. That's a whole separate part of that conversation. But really, this whole idea of the ideal client and matching the content and the presenter to something that resonates with that ideal client is really, really important.
And I would just, I'm sorry,
Go
Angela, go
ahead.
ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean,
Go ahead, go.
okay. It's a huge concept to really understand, because I know a lot of people and advisors can be quick starts or very using this very D and want to just get the job done, bring somebody in. But from the client and the attendee standpoint, it's really important for your own reputation that you don't again have what we call the icky factor. You want to bring somebody in that is aligned with your values and aligned with your conversation, is acting as a partner, and they don't feel like, oh, this was kind of a bait and switch, they're trying to sell me a policy. You just don't want that. You really want to always be up here from an educational mindset, and the conversations and the policies, the AUM, it will all follow.
What I was going to say is, and I think Pam and Elaine would agree with me, because we are in this field, the three of us, is that what is probably most deeply missed, which is what you talked about, Elyse, well, actually, and Angela, which is bringing in those other family members. In long-term care, every single family has other family members who are involved ultimately, right? This is just not a lonely road. It is a long road with lots of people. And if you can get the people who are important to your client in the room, not only will you be able to answer those questions, give them guidance, come up with policies or financial plans that are important, but again, and I think this is really important, you can make them clients because they're going to see that you're a person who cares about the entire family experience. And this is a particular, this is just a particular financial area, long-term care, where that could not be more true, that this is a family event.
And Cathy, you brought this up earlier, and I brought it up in some of the points that I was bringing up. So, there are couple and family dynamics where there might not be children. There may not be family members that are acting in that beneficiary role, and that's okay. They're beneficiaries. It could be the girlfriend, as long as it's still a girlfriend, and it could be a best friend. You want to still bring those people into those conversations, because if they are a beneficiary, regardless of what their relationship is to the client, you want to make sure you develop that relationship. And again, you can gain a client from it. So it doesn't matter if they're a son, a daughter, a girlfriend, a niece, a nephew, a best friend.
Exactly.
That's their beneficiary. That's who's important to them.
Right. Their person.
Because
Right.
not
I think
everyone's
that terminology
makeup, is two kids and a white picket fence. It's not that way anymore.
Exactly. I think that terminology is super important. We have a tendency to talk about beneficiary, but I love the idea of talking about people who are important to you, people who are going to be involved.
Right. Who's your person?
Right. Or your people, and
your people.
And recognizing that, yes, okay, advisors or whatever, you're running a business, we get that. But as Angela said, if we want to avoid the ick factor, we want to deepen relationships with people because we're doing what we do because of people, then it shouldn't really matter. And it's got to be, again, it's client centric. Who are the people that are important to you? Are we doing events that are topics that are important to you? In a very short, snarky, because that's who I am, moment, people will say, I host these events and nobody comes and they're expensive. And again, that why, that's like, are you hosting this because you think you should? Are you hosting this because you've seen another advisor host it and you want to do what they're doing? Make sure you're doing these events and you're bringing in the experts that are important to your ideal clients. Absolutely everything that Cathy's talking about is very important. But if most of your clients are like college planning people, Cathy's awesome, but she's probably not the right person you should be bringing in for your expert-led events. So we feel like that's a really important point to think about. Any other questions, thoughts, comments?
No, but have a college planning person if you need them.
Cathy subscribes to the I got a gal.
I got a gal. I got a gal for everything.
And that's awesome. Because again, I think, as I look at our list, we're all women that are on this call right now. Mm-hmm. It's something that we have a tendency to do. But to be honest with you, when we're coaching male advisors, we have to really talk about this because they want to be the expert. And the reality is, yes, your clients want you to have some sort of expertise. But if you want to deepen relationships, it's about listening and collaborating and having somebody who can actually help them. Awesome.
Very good. And we are going to record this and share it. So you feel free, right, to share.
Absolutely.
With people you feel are important, should have this, other advisors, your clients, whatever.
And even, we're going to post the recording. If you're a wholesaler listening to this or somebody at a broker dealer, this is important to share with your advisors. I mean, you want to shout it from the rooftops. I mean, it's so important. And it's, again, having come from, inside for so long, we don't have to do things the same way just because we've done them that way for ever.
Well,
Right.
awesome. We appreciate everybody taking some time out of your day. We are thrilled to be able to give you some time back in your day. And please reach out either through the QR code or LinkedIn. And we would love to be able to help or just even answer any questions. So thank you,
Yes,
everybody.
absolutely. Have a great day.
Have a great day.